Welcome back. So let's go back to one of our top stories. The televangelist Timothy Omotoso and his two co-accused have been found not guilty of rape, sexual assault and human trafficking. Judge Irma Schoeman found that the state failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. We get reaction now, and for that we are joined by the Eastern Cape ANC Women's League's Ntandokazi Capa. Good evening to you. Also joining us is Wise for Africa's Director Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo. Ladies, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I do think that it's been 8 years of what is an incredibly long journey, and perhaps we start with you, Ms. Capa, your reaction to the judgment, the acquittal. Were you expecting it?
No, we are not expecting it because you remember, Naledi, we've been following this case for the past 8 years, and we've been going to court for the past 8 years because we are hoping that there will be justice that will be served for the victims. But we are really disappointed. Of course, they will respect the rule of law, but we are disappointed as the ANC Women's League because we believe that the judgment is taking us 10 steps backward. As you can see, that gender-based violence in the country is at its peak, if I can put it that way. So it's really discouraging for us as ANC Women's League in the province.
Yeah, a long 8 years, and certainly for those that have also had to take the stand and share their story. Advocate Madumise-Pajibo, there's of course the words that were used by Judge Irma Schoeman in her judgment, scathing for the National Prosecuting Authority, and I quote, "No thought went into the state's cross-examination of the accused. The cross-examination was shallow and lacking the intention to uncover the truth." I mean, how did we get here? How did we get to a point where a case that's been going on for so long ends with the NPA quoted in that judgment as seemingly having dropped the ball?
I mean, it's disheartening and it's a travesty, really. So in 8 years you had, and if you recall this case from the beginning, there were challenges. The first prosecutor on the matter, there was an application for his recusal, right? There were issues around a WhatsApp message, a WhatsApp group that was set up by the prosecution for all the witnesses, and it was alleged that the prosecutor was coaching the witnesses, right? So, I mean, from 8 years ago, that the NPA could not get their act together, it's really disheartening and disappointing, right? Because they knew what they were up against. You had a perpetrator who was willing to put all stops because he had the money to keep on delaying this matter by challenging some of the procedural aspects of this case, right? And that's why we are 8 years later and we find ourselves with an acquittal. And I think the National Prosecuting Authority has got answers to give to South Africa on how this matter was handled. It's going to be very important for us to look at what evidence they had before them and why is it that they took less than 2 hours to cross-examine someone who we believed had committed heinous crimes. Trafficking of human beings is a serious crime, right? Rape, and you had witnesses that told their story on the stand of their ordeal, and it was the responsibility of the prosecutor to really get to the bottom of it and dig deep and cross-examine the accused thoroughly instead of just thinking that in 1 hour they're done. When you have a case of this nature, you take your time to get the evidence, you get across your point properly without any rush, so that you are able to show the court that you have discharged your responsibility, that you have been told that we could not convict and you could not prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. Not even on one. There are 32 charges against these individuals. 32. We could not find them guilty of even one. It says a lot about what happened in this matter.
If you'll allow me to stay with you just a little bit, and we'll come back to you, Mam Capa, but I want to stay with you, Advocate, because this is what Judge Irma Schoeman says. It's appropriate to mention that Mr. Ntlelwa, a lead prosecutor, assured me that he had consulted with all witnesses. He initially stated that he was not going to apply for an amendment, but he brought such an application. Some of the amendments were granted and others dismissed. It later transpired that the indictment served on the accused was not the same they were asked to plead to. I mean, just listening to some of this, you wonder about the quality of prosecutors that we have in the system. I mean, do we have the skills that are necessary?
Listen, I mean, they will tell you the NPA. And I think together with the Women's League and many other organizations, we need to ask for a meeting with the NPA, the head of the NPA, Ms. Batohi. Really take us through what happened in this case. What were what was the preparation? Remember, the case has already been investigated by the South African Police Service. They hand over this docket. They tell you, we've got 20 witnesses. Surely you meet with all those witnesses because you've got their statements in the docket. You look at what they have said. You ensure that when they are on the stand, they do not contradict themselves. You really drive your case to be able to secure a conviction, right? And they will tell you, NPA, that there is a college for training of prosecutors. But I keep on saying that, and consistently so, that when you have people who do this kind of work for the sake of doing it because it's a job, you're going to have situations like this because the drive and the passion is not there.
And let's not forget that one of the things that is a blight on our reputation as a country is us being called the rape capital of the world. And as we talk about the Timothy Omotoso trial, and we did this just before the break as well, we then brought you other stories of gender-based violence. No arrests have been made in that matter. There's the story of a family in the Northwest that says that they're unhappy with the handling of a rape case of their a 7-year-old girl. Another issue of a 13-year-old in Polokwane, where a 58-year-old teacher made their first appearance in court. So, Capa, just as you listen to some of these cases and some of the points that have been made by Advocate Madumise-Pajibo, do you believe that we can get justice to some of the cases that we've just touted?
That is why when I was speaking earlier, I said that something needs to be done because the judgment is taking us 10 steps backwards in the fact that most women are not going to come forward because they no longer have faith into the justice system. So it is important, therefore, that something is done in order to bring back the integrity of the NPA, in order to bring back the faith of the society to the justice system. As long as you don't do anything about it, people are not going to come forward. And that's where we have the crisis as the country, where most women are victimized. Even when they take the stand, they continue to be victimized. And after 8 years, when you have went through such a traumatic experience, after 8 years, you don't get any justice. So I think something needs to be done. I agree with Advocate. I fully agree with her.
What is it that you think can be done? And that's going to be the ultimate question. You know, Advocate Madumise is saying, you know, organizations such as yourselves, the ANC Women's League, need to call for a sit-down with the National Prosecuting Authority head, Shamila Batohi. But also, are you confident, and I think this is an important question, are you confident that the National Prosecuting Authority can deal with the wave of cases that are coming towards it? Do you still hold that confidence?
It does not give you confidence looking at what is happening with the Capa case, where there's not been any way forward in terms of what is supposed to happen, and it's dragging, and it happens sometime in last year in October, and even today. It's only now that the country is up in arms that we can see some movement. Therefore, it means one will not have faith, but we must not give up. We must not be deterred. We must continue to engage. We must hold those who are supposed to hold them accountable. We do that. So hence I say the call that is made by the advocate, we agree that we must sit down with them, get and understand what really transpired, so that we are able to rectify whatever that needs to be done, so that we don't find ourselves in the same situation again. Otherwise, we will go around circles if we don't do what we are supposed to do as women's league, as well as other women's organizations that are advocating for women in this country.
Yeah, thank you for that. Advocate, yesterday, countrywide protests with people calling for justice for Gqeberha. How do you think that the National Prosecuting Authority should handle that case to avoid yet another blunder?
Listen, I mean, I think in all of this, we can't miss the South African Police Service, right? In this. Remember, by the time it goes to National Prosecuting Authority, it starts with the South African Police Service, how thorough they are in their investigation, right? Once the docket is handed over to the National Prosecuting Authority, and as a prosecutor or the control prosecutor, you are seized with that docket. You look at it and ask yourself if what you have before you will guarantee a conviction, or you have everything that you can prosecute this successfully, right? And my sense is as follows. We get told that most prosecutors are sitting with over 100 files per person, right? That's what we are told. And if you're sitting with 100 files and you are seeing that file for the first time on the day that matter appears in court, then we're in trouble, right? And that's why we have been advocating for an investigation that is prosecution-led, that the prosecutor becomes involved from day one when the case is reported and is started to be investigated, because he becomes or she becomes part of the investigation process. This thing of prosecutors only getting files on the day of the case appearing before court is leading to situations like this, that someone is only getting the docket and reading it quickly so that then they can appear before a magistrate or a judge and say something. My difficulty with also how we're approaching this, and we keep on saying as a country that gendered violence it's a pandemic, it's a crisis, but our response to it does not match what we say, right? At all, and we see it at a higher level that if you believe that it's a crisis, surely you give us your best in everything. You give us your best in terms of human resources. You give us your best in terms of any other resources that are required for you to build the confidence in the public, to have confidence in you prosecuting these cases successfully, investigating them successfully.
Yeah. There's a lot of work, obviously, that needs to be done in getting a smooth route towards justice for victims of gender-based violence. But ladies, we do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Ntandokazi Capa is, of course, ANC Women's League's chair in the Eastern Cape, as well as Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo speaking to us there.